I'm Jessica Mallios. The exhibition is Signaling Light. The project explores the oblique histories of female lighthouse keepers through multi-channel video, drawing, and photography. I was interested in themes of labor, gender, and technology when putting the work together. And a lot of my work deals with themes of light and reflectivity and panoptical architecture. And so I was sort of fascinated with thinking about this kind of new 360-degree architecture that I could explore. And so I started to research lighthouses in the United States. And in doing so, I started to sort of slowly learn about keepers. The video work is 3 channels, and one of the channels is a split channel. It's a diptych of 2 portholes, one where I'm on a ship and I'm looking at water, and it's just constantly filming the water. And then the other porthole is from inside of a lighthouse, and it's different 360-degree views. And so some of the views are obstructed by other architectures or trees or pathways. And then the other video is a 30-minute video of me doing a rubbing of a lighthouse in Port Isabel, Texas. I needed to try to make an impression of this. And I was really interested in making that with my body and not necessarily just with a camera. The main video, I would say, is the video where I go to all of these places, all of these locations and landscapes in the United States, and film at them and look a lot through the glass from the tower. So there's a lot of reflectivity, a lot of overviews, things about horizon lines that are kind of endless in some of them, I think. A lot of texture and a lot of water. It felt like water was a huge part of the work as a kind of connector. That main video also has all of the audio with it, where you hear women reading logbook entries from female lighthouse keepers, and then also next of kin that I had interviewed talking to me about their great-great-grandmother. Then the videos are deliberately put into certain relationships in the architecture here at Women in Their Work. And so the curved wall is all one cloth material that allows the viewer to be sort of immersed in an architecture, but then allows you out and allows you to see it from a kind of exterior framework. So there was the curvature in the space that felt like a necessary way to immerse the viewer, but then also strategically thinking about the videos being placed in a triangulation to also create that kind of immersive quality to architecture. And the audience has a chance to kind of just sit there and just look. They're all 30 minutes long, and they all have this one moment where they sink and they go to the Milky Way. But there's a lot of that pausing quality, I would say, throughout the piece, where I was really trying to create pauses because I didn't want things to move too fast. There's a lot of listening, and I know that that's hard for people sometimes to just listen. We're so fast all the time, and rarely do we just allow ourselves to listen. So the listening aspect was a really important part in the editing process and the installation. I had these drawings. My background in photography, I've always worked in experimental ways, and I thought that I could turn those into photographs and treat them as a negative, and in doing so, the more I researched, the more I really thought about a kind of experimental type of documentary. I didn't necessarily want it to be a conventional one. You can read a book for that, but it was more like trying to figure out a way to talk about the narratives that I was reading about. So slowly I just started to make these connections through a lot of conversations, a lot of research, and I would go and travel places. I'd never heard silence like I did there. It was incredible. The sights and the experiences and the sort of texture of these landscapes had a profound effect on me, just being there and thinking through those things. And so there's a lot of kind of slow filming and kind of meditative ways that I work, and I think it's absolutely indicative of these experiences. I also going back to coming from photography and thinking about a still image, I do think in some ways it makes sense that a lot of the footage in there is really still. As I was making this work, I thought a lot just about the way things go in terms of gender and the building blocks of sort of bigger systems at play. And so, thinking about the patriarch and these kinds of things are always in me. A key part of the work. I grew up with a single mom. The majority of her life, she did manual labor. And then I read this dissertation by Virginia Neal Thomas in 2010, and it really was pivotal. It dealt with this idea of women's work and the parallels to that and lighthouse keeping. And in this dissertation, she talks so much about how it is a lot like keeping a house, quite literally. And it is something that is so foreign in some ways to men during this time period, but not for women. So it was this interesting read about how it came to be that there were female keepers. I think just bringing the word labor to the table is important, or the idea of invisible labor, rather. What I've learned, and then having been to a bunch of different lighthouses now and walking up the stairs, up and down and up and down, it's super physically intense, and there's a lot of maintenance that has to be done in these architectures, thinking about a caretaking and work and all the things surrounding those things that people don't understand or recognize or can empathize with, unless they've done it or they've seen it or they've heard about it. I think it's important that these three things of technology and gender and labor do kind of, they bounce off of one another and reflect each other in different ways. My hope is that there's an opportunity for the viewer to sit in silence and solitude and reflect on time and the passages of time too. I hope to create a space for the viewer to have a pause, to have a sense of presence, to reflect on the here and now through the history of these female keepers, I think is the hope.